Welcome back to the Restless Show. I'm Father Joseph Gill, your host from the Diocese of Bridgeport, and here with Javier, Lauren, and Diane as we dive deeper into what it means to be a young adult Catholic in today's world. And today, we're talking about a topic that is going to be one of the most interesting and applicable topics for all of us, and that is Catholic dating. Well, I guess it won't be applicable to all of us.
I was just thinking that.
I'm kind of out of that realm, but but to those of you who are listening, who are kind of wondering, like, how should Catholics date? That's the question we're going to be kind of examining today, kind of telling your own stories of dating, the good, bad, and the ugly, and also how as Catholics we should kind of be approaching this part of our life that's pretty important, how to find a spouse, what God is intending for the dating life and the dating world. So I'm not going to do most of the talking, although my Catholic dating experience ended in 10th grade. But
oh, wow.
Yeah, people are surprised that priests date, but I did at one time in high school have 2 girlfriends. Not at once.
Oh, wow.
In succession.
That was going to be my next question.
No. So tell me about, what's your dating experience been? You know, are you currently in a relationship? Have you recently come out of one? Javier, what's your experience been?
I am currently in a relationship, happily. Dating a wonderful Catholic woman. And we've been dating now since April 16th.
Nice. So are you allowed to say her name on air?
Yes, Maria Virginia, but I call her Mavi. Everybody knows her as Mavi.
Nice. So we have Mavi and Javi dating each other. So if they get married...
That'll be easy.
That would be awesome.
How
Yeah.
cute.
The hashtag will be pretty easy.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how you pick your spouse these days.
Yes.
Have a good hashtag.
No.
No?
No, but it's to answer some of your questions, it's my first Christian, like real Christian relationship. So there's been a lot of learning in the way into what the Lord actually wanted for me, for my future. And so
So you had some relationships before that were not Christian per se?
No, not at all. Even girls that I dated that claimed to be Christian or Catholics or any denomination, but believers of Christ, we were definitely not living a Christian relationship. It was very secular relationships.
What's exactly the difference?
Well, so Mavi and I are, trying to live our relationship the way that the church wants us to live it, but ultimately the way that Jesus would want us to live it. And that is to fall in love with each other. I always think about the Song of Songs, in which the lover first sees his woman as his sister, and then, once they're married, once they become one flesh, then he sees her as more than a sister. But that's kind of the point of it, is that, we're trying to remain chaste, but ultimately, more importantly, always focused on the goal that is to bring each other to holiness. And you can't do that unless Christ is at the center of your relationship.
Yeah.
And so
The best piece of dating advice I ever heard was from a priest who said, start running after Jesus. And once you've been running after Jesus for a while, look around and see who's running with you.
yes.
And those are the people you should be dating.
Oh,
I was like, that's...
I mean, growing up in the Protestant world for a couple of years, I heard that many times too. Preachers would say that all the time. I think it's just become a common thing, and it makes total sense, right? I mean, you're running madly towards the Lord, and then you look left, you look right, and there's got to be someone there.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point too, because I think in society today, people look at marriage as kind of like a commodity, or just they don't really understand the purpose, right? I mean, most of it's just they come from it from like a secular standpoint, and a lot of people are just focused on getting picture of the ring when you get engaged and planning the day as opposed to planning your lives together. And I think oftentimes people forget that it's a vocation, and that, as husband and wife, the whole purpose of marriage is to bring each other to heaven, right? And to raise kids, God willing, in the faith. So I think it's such a serious sort of endeavor. dating, that is, and that it's something that like we really have to take seriously, and also, just like Javi said, Christ is to be at the center, because if he's not, I mean, I don't know, I don't want to live a non-Christ like secular marriage or be in that, because I think that, like, if you have eternity as your common goal, I think that you can get through a lot of the daily struggles and, things that you might not be able to overcome in a secular relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, and that takes the interior formation of your virtues.
Right.
Just today I got a phone call from a guy who said, "Father, I'd like to get married." Great. Okay, when are you thinking about getting married? It's like a month from now. I was like, you probably should have called me about 5 months ago. And I was trying to explain to him that to prepare for marriage is more than just preparing for the day. It's about formation of the virtues that are going to be necessary for a good and happy, healthy marriage. And he was just kind of like, can we make it a little faster?
Right.
So you can't do formation faster. You can't develop a virtue overnight. It's a habit that you grow in over and over again.
Well, you know what he had in mind. You know why he wants to get married in a month, right?
Because there's a discount on rental halls? I don't know.
That's a good point.
He wants to get married in a month because he wants to become one flesh with this woman, and that's the goal that he has in his mind. But even though that is the intent of leaving your mother and your father to cleave to a woman, there's so much that needs to happen before that happens, And the Lord, just like he wants us to be patient through our single life, he also wants us to be patient when we are dating. And in that patience, we become closer to the Lord. I think he wants us to master our fleshly desires because, he wants us to see the beauty of becoming one in him. And becoming, I always think about a triangle, right? Where God is at the center, and the closer that you and your spouse, or you and your girlfriend, or you and your fiance are getting to the Lord, the closer you are getting to each other, right? But until you are closer to the Lord and in a really good relationship, both of you, not just one of you, in a really good relationship with the Lord, you should not become one flesh. Because...
Well, you shouldn't become one flesh until you take the wedding marriage vows.
Of course.
I don't care how close you are to the Lord.
Well, you know what I meant. That's what I meant. But, I mean, you think about people like St. Paul and stuff, and you think about some of the biggest doctors of our church, and they struggle with the flesh. And,
That's true.
They live lives that are different than ours. Every living, breathing second of their day, was devoted to their ministry. Like we as laymen,
I think they struggled.
Yeah, of course.
They struggled.
But we work. We don't spend, as long a time in prayer. We don't spend all this time reading and studying as they did. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been, scholars or the doctors or writing all these epistles and stuff. And yet they struggled with their flesh.
So you're saying that everyone struggles.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Everyone does.
Yeah.
And so...
And that actually is, St. Thomas Aquinas said that's one of the main reasons for marriage, is for an outlet for concupiscence.
Yeah.
An outlet for the struggles of the flesh that a lot of people do wrestle with,
Right.
And it's legitimate. I think it's legit. My brother's actually getting married in a month as well. He got engaged about 2 weeks ago.
Nice.
As well. And I'm willing to do this one because he is doing it for the right reasons. Because he said, look, I want to make a home with her. I want to have kids with her. I want, to do everything right in the Catholic Church. And I was like, well, I can't really argue with that.
Right.
I think he's doing it right.
Yeah, that's what it's all about.
My brother actually never dated either. He's kind of an interesting situation because he, during the coronavirus quarantine, he was just kind of alone at home. So his friend's like, hey, why don't you come and hang out with me and my grandparents during the coronavirus quarantine? And he's like, all right, sure. So we went over to their house and just kind of got to know this girl who was his friend. They met in Bible study. And after hanging out for 5 months together in a house where they were very chaste, they lived in separate rooms. But he's like, you know what? Even though we've never dated, let's just get married. Let's make this official.
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy, but good for them.
In our post-coronavirus world,
Anything is possible.
Or in the
Anything's
normal
possible.
order of things, I think we all think, or you've come to understand, usually the process takes a little longer. and you do actually date, like go on dates, and it progresses. But if they know, they know, and that's a beautiful thing.
So that's one of the questions for you is what do you think, and maybe there is no answer to this, but what do you think is the ideal amount of time to date someone before taking that next step of engagement?
From what I've seen, I think it could totally vary, right? And I've heard this often, right? Like, we just knew, and it could be a really short time. Or like, I know my parents, I think it was about 4 years for them. And that seemed right to me. So like growing up, I always thought, oh, that's probably about how long it takes. But that also had to do with when they met. I think my mom was still in school and my dad had graduated but gone back and took additional courses, and he's 4 years older. So they started out with her in school, and then he ended up moving to Michigan. So it was long distance for his job. So, like that was their path, right? And that's the one I know the best. But for everyone, it's different. And for me personally, I've just had like short-term things mostly, like dating here and there, flings. A lot of things don't actually turn into anything, which I think is for the best, right? Because if it's not the right fit, it should end.
Right.
And what I tend to see is people in these long, drawn-out things, right? And like you as a friend may realize like, oh, those two don't actually seem right. Like they kind of
they're trying to make it
conflict
work,
a lot. Yeah, and they just keep going down the path, like, and in the secular world, it's like, okay, well, we're going to move in together. That's often,
Right.
like date for a while and then move in. And then after a couple years of that, then it's engaged. Then it's married. And it might never be right, from very early on.
Do you feel, especially for the ladies here, do you feel like some ladies in particular, and maybe the guys too, but some ladies in particular have a fear of not being attached to someone?
Absolutely.
Like they date people just so that they can have a boyfriend.
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah.
But I think men do that too. I mean, I've certainly had an experience where I met a guy and we dated a little bit, and he was like super into me, and it was like, okay. And then it turned out that he didn't actually retain anything about me. Even like that our birthdays were 11 days apart, and he made a big deal about that. Like, oh, look at that, we're so close in age. And then like my birthday came, he totally forgot. He didn't call me. I'm like, okay, well,
Oh gosh.
that was fine because I'm not that kind of a girl really. And also it was still very new. But the whole point was like, he was just infatuated with this idea, like, I want a girlfriend.
Ah.
Yeah.
And here's this person that can fit that slot, and now I can.
Yeah,
I
she's
think even
great
too, it was
attached,
like
isn't
even
it?
emotional stuff. Like I can dump all this stuff on this person. I see that a lot too in relationships. But your partner necessarily isn't there for that. Like they're more than that. Like they're your equal. They're your partner. You can't just use them for whatever it is, whether it's emotional or psychological or sexual, right? Like whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a strong temptation too, because like, I mean, I'm just I kind of just march to the beat of my own drum. So, but I think a lot of girls just, I mean, it's so easy to, like you feel lonely or whatever, and you just want attention from someone, and people give you that attention. But I think if you're striving for a Christ-like relationship, it's like I could go on an app and just go out with any guy. It's easy, but you have to sort of understand your self-worth and wait for. Just trust that God has, if this is truly your vocation, that God will, like, in his time, will make things happen, and just to be patient. I think what Javi was saying before, patience is hard. It's difficult, but it's something that you can only learn by being patient and trusting. And I think that in and of itself is like a spiritual lesson that, like, for example, for myself, that like God is sort of like, I would never understand that lesson if I wasn't sort of going through it. And I think it's beautiful when you kind of start to see, like you look back and see the way that things have weaved together. And you just, you strive for virtue and holiness.
That can be hard to wait though, because I'd imagine that the question comes, oh, am I ever going to find anybody? Or is there something wrong with me?
I'm sure that Diane and I have both had those thoughts more than once, but I don't know. What can we do about it?
Well, I think one of the most important things that I've kind of, like, I guess learned over the years is that, like, your worth isn't based on whether you're in a relationship or not, and I'm not just saying that. I do believe that. I mean, just because you have a girlfriend or just because you're married, it's like, it's not like then you've like, oh my gosh, my life is complete. I've made it. I have nothing. I see people in marriages and it's hard work. It's like, it's a lot of stress. And I think we all always look at like the grass is always greener on the other side. If only I had that, if only I had this, if only I had that, like I would be totally perfectly happy. And I don't think that's the case. And I think that you can experience that in not just in dating, but in any aspect of your life. And you also have to, I mean, just, like, dive into the Bible. I mean, like, we were knit in like, God knew us, right? Before we were born. He chose us. He specifically chose us. Like, the chances of us being alive, I don't even know what those are, but, like, so many things had to happen, right?
Pretty small, I would imagine.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, God has a purpose for your life, and your life isn't, like, defined by your relationship status. It's so much more than that. I think if you get so drawn up in that, you can waste your life, just feeling sorry for yourself, and then missing the purpose of why God planted you here, which I think is scary, like, to...
Yeah, I sometimes
happen.
hear somebody say, oh my boyfriend or my girlfriend completes me. And I'm like, nah, it shouldn't be the case. It should be that God completes you, because you can't look to find your missing part from your boyfriend or girlfriend, because you should come to a relationship to give, to lay down your life for this person, not to get from them what you're missing, what you're hungering for.
And that's the thing. I think if you're talking about marriage and you're talking about those things, like, I love that he does this for me, I love that he does that for me, like, it's all focused on yourself, and really, like, the whole purpose of life is self-gift and to give it away. So I think you're just coming at it from the wrong perspective.
Yeah. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about some practical nitty-gritties. Where in the world can good Catholics find dates?
Hey, did you know you can take Veritas Catholic Network with you wherever you go? All you have to do is download the Veritas Catholic Network app. Then you can listen to the live broadcast 24 hours a day. You can also grab podcasts of our original shows like Let Me Be Frank and Restless, and much more, right at your fingertips and on your phone. Download the Veritas Catholic Network app today at the Apple App Store or on the Google Play Store, or visit www.veritascatholic.com.
And welcome back to Restless. We've been talking about a topic that's pretty pertinent to all of our lives, those of us who are perhaps single, and that is Catholic dating. Where in the world do good Catholics find dates? Because if you're in your 20s or 30s, you probably don't want to just go hang out at bars. That's not really the kind of people you want to... I mean, maybe you will meet a spouse there, maybe somebody to hang out with, but the question is, as a good Catholic, where am I going to find people? And since I'm kind of out of that dating pool, I'd love to hear from you all who are still dating. Where have you looked? Where did you find people?
So, I mean, I can speak for myself. I definitely looked at... I was at the bars for a few years, and that didn't happen. I don't know what was going on. Like, in terms of, like, you think that... I don't know. But, so after that, I tried, like, just some dating apps. So there's some secular dating apps, and I think one of the things that you have to be very careful about is that people, like, label themselves, even on... And I've tried Catholic Match as well. Just because someone is on a site and labels himself as Catholic doesn't mean that they're actually practicing Catholics. So that is one, I think it's a great sort of tool that people have developed, right? And people have gotten married.
I will say my sister got married through Catholic Match.
Okay, yeah. See? So it works.
Met a really good Catholic man.
It works, but just like everything, it's not like a magic pill or something. Like, you have to kind of be careful about who you're talking to and get to know them, because I think my experience has been that just because you call yourself a Catholic doesn't mean that you are, and that's kind of been one of, I guess, disappointing things for me, of just not being on the same page about, like, the reality of the faith, I mean, I think another place to meet people is just, like, a Bible study or a young adult group. I know we started a young adult group in our in Stamford, Connecticut, and I know a couple of people who are now in relationships because of that.
Nice.
And just, getting to know other people. So I think, Mass and just going, like, if you're striving after a Catholic relationship, go to where the Catholic young adults are, which is, like, Mass, young adult meetings.
I would definitely encourage our listeners, if you're not part of a young adult group, to become part of one, because they're out there. A lot of times people say, oh, the church has abandoned young adults. That's not true. You just have to look,
Right.
Ask your parish priest. Most people probably are in a parish where it's more older people, or maybe, families. You're like, I don't see anyone near my age. Well, look around.
Yeah.
Or look at the town next door.
Or look at the town next door, yeah.
Stanford has a lot more going on than Greenwich does, as far as I know. But in my experience, so I started coming to these Catholic young adult things more and more. I meet a ton of girls and make new friends. I mean, there are some guys, but there's always more girls than guys. So it's been hard. And it's like a known thing. Like, before you were here, it was Father Andy, and we just would talk about it all the time. Like, yep, there's plenty of nice women here, but the men are a little shorter in supply.
In the defense of the men, I hear from the men saying, "Oh, I can't find any good Catholic women." Like,
What the hell?
I wish I.
There's tons of us.
I was like, I wish I could set you up with a girl that says the same thing.
Yeah.
Opposite way
no.
around.
Yeah, I don't know. And I always thought too, you got to be out living your life, right? Doing whatever it is. So for me, it's Ultimate Frisbee. And I've certainly met some people and dated people that play Ultimate and share my passion, which has been fun. And I coach basketball. There's way more like men's basketball coaches than women, but that hasn't worked out. But I always kind of thought, hopefully something that I do, will lead me to someone with similar interests. But so far, nothing serious. And I really haven't dated many Catholics. Like I think one guy that I dated happened to be Catholic. It was brief, but like I don't really date Catholic people. Like the last guy I dated last year was Christian, so that was good. And we met through an app, and he told me like pretty early on, like, oh, I like that it said that you're Catholic and it's important. Like that stood out to me.
Nice.
Like, yeah, exactly. Because of course, when I did that, I'm like, oh, do I want to do that? I don't know. It's like, yes, you want to do that. That is who you are. This is a good thing. But with him, it was a challenge in the difference between Protestant and Catholicism. And one time I yelled at him because he would not stop calling the Eucharist a symbol. And I was like, this is so offensive. Like, not to me, but like to Jesus. Like, I can't believe you won't listen to his word, what he said. So I got pretty angry, But then I'm like, okay, come on. Be merciful, right? Like, be patient. Try to bring him in over time.
So this brings up another good question that we should kind of wrestle with is, should we as Catholics broaden our horizons for dating and date people that maybe are not Catholic or maybe not on the same spiritual page as us, maybe in the hopes that we can bring them closer to Christ? Or...
Diane and I disagree because she's shaking her head no, and I'm over here like, well, yeah, because...
All right, no, go ahead.
You gotta...
the different perspectives here. Diane, why do you say no?
I mean, for me... having a Catholic relationship and being on the same page about, like, I just think down the line of, like, wanting to raise kids in the Catholic faith, I think there can be a lot of tension and animosity, and this is from, like, my past experience as well, of there's a lot of, like, you think, oh, Christian, we have everything in common, and that's often not the case. Sometimes it can be a pretty sort of, like, hostile, thing, and then if my husband is not going to Mass, then how are my kids, when they're 10 years old, they're going to be like, well, why? He's not going, I'm not going to go. I just think it leads to a lot of problems, and I just view marriage as a vocation of, like, getting each other to heaven, and I'm not saying that other Christians aren't, holy. I'm sure some of them are living holier lives than Catholics, but for myself, I want someone who is on the same page about all of the things that, like, I hold most dear to my heart, and that is non-negotiable for me.
Lauren, the rebuttal?
Well, I feel the same way. Do I want to marry a Catholic man? Yes. Like, who has my same level of faith, all these things. I mean, there's no way I'm not raising my future kids in the Catholic faith. Like, that's a non-negotiable. But at this point, I've kind of just realized, like, well, Catholic men are harder to find than I thought when I was much younger. So... now that's why it's like if I connect with someone that's nice or funny and we get along, we have similar interests, whatever it is, then I'll date them, and see where it goes. And maybe it can, go this way, or maybe it can't. Maybe it goes a different way. Maybe it ends, whatever it is. But I've left it open.
Javier, you have to break the tie here.
So I've heard something said that, and I kind of want to change the way that they said that because I kind of see it differently. There's something that was said that was, do not lower your standards, but increase your patience. And in this case, it wouldn't be really lowering your standards. It would be changing your standards because we're not higher than evangelicals or anything. But lately I've come to the realization that we're equally yoked when it comes to our faith in the Lord Jesus Christ, but we're not equally yoked when it comes to the things that we believe in. And being equally yoked is one of the most important things when you're meeting somebody.
He's referencing a quote from St. Paul, which instructs believers to not be yoked with unbelievers in marriage. Yeah.
So, and just to explain to you guys what a yoke was, it's an instrument that was used for farming, where they would put it on the necks of two animals and it would keep them together.
Yeah.
And so one couldn't go left unless the other one was going left as well. And so that's what being equally yoked means. You're both looking at the same thing. And so if there's going to be... arguments about your faith should not be what separates you. And there will be a lot of opportunities for arguments. And this is something that I came to the realization just literally a couple of weeks ago. You know, the more I dive into the faith and the more I start going to, like, say, even traditional mass and everything. And so it's like, you know, it's tough. It's really, really tough. But there is a period of discernment, right? When you meet somebody, right? You meet somebody and you're in that period of discernment of whether or not you want to date them. And you can tell in that period of discernment whether or not that person's going to be open to, say, go to mass and say, maybe they're Christians, but maybe they'll say, you know what? I love you and I love the Lord. And if this is where you want to go to church, this is where I'm going to raise our kids. That's fine. You know, either way, whether it's a husband or a wife, you know, that's fine either way.
Respect factor.
But if there's going to be an argument from the get-go about where you're going to go to church, where you're going to bring your kids, then that's not going to end there. I've also heard it said that arguments before marriage are only going to get intensified whenever the problems that you have before marriage are only going to get way intensified, you know, because all those little things that you're overseeing or overlooking is the word, they're not going to get overlooked later on. You know.
So here's a question for you then. So when you're looking for a potential boyfriend or girlfriend, what are some of the characteristics that you personally would look for? You can say physical too.
No,
nice hair.
The very first thing is, you know, as Christians, we should look for somebody that's going to be running towards the Lord with all their mind, soul, and strength. Mind, heart, soul, and strength. That is the very first thing, because otherwise, nothing else really matters. You know, if our goal is to get to heaven or to be holy, you know, then that's the first thing.
I would challenge you just with a very practical reality. I mean, you said nothing else really matters. That's in terms of a friendship. Yeah, I want friends that are like totally Christian. But like in terms of like a marriage relationship, there's a lot of other stuff that matters too.
No,
obviously, it have to be something you're attracted to, something you jive with, you know. I know you mean that, but
I know what I know what you're trying to say, and what I meant by that. I think I should probably explain myself a little bit. Is unless you have that, the other stuff does not matter as much, you know, because that's the first thing you should look for. If that's not there, then you shouldn't look at something else. Now, if that is there, then that's when you start looking at other things. Like,
then you go back to Lauren's point, though, about like, you know, finding people that perhaps are not on the same spiritual page as you, but that respect your spiritual beliefs and kind of.
Yeah, and I can't say that I've done what Javi has done just because I haven't really encountered it.
Well, see, for me, the reason why I kind of came to this realization was the last girlfriend I had was an atheist. And after she and I broke up, and we dated for about 2 years. After she and I broke up, I found myself on my knees praying in tears, plenty, asking the Lord, why, Lord? Why did you bring her to me? Knowing that my flesh was so weak and that she fit all of those weaknesses. And so, why, Lord? Why? And I came to the realization that I would have been completely fine with somebody that said they were Christian, but they weren't in love with the Lord. That's what I really wanted in that moment. And I would have been way more than content with that.
So this atheist girlfriend kind of showed you that not just being called a Christian, but actually like living it out is...
Well, she didn't. The Lord,
the critical piece.
The Lord did. The Lord did through her.
Yeah.
You know, that's what he did in my heart through her. It brought me to my knees. And after I was on my knees and crying and begging him to reveal why, he said, because this is what I want for you, because this is what it should be.
Yeah.
I want you to be with a woman that's in love with me so that you can both grow in holiness together. And that just became very apparent to me. And I was like, I don't want to date someone or marry someone unless they have that first. Once I see that in them, then I could start looking for somebody that has the same family values as me, that has the same morals as me, or maybe even higher morals as a woman. You know, I respect that and love that a lot about a woman, so.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, we ran out of time, but this was a great discussion and a great topic, and I'm glad we had some different perspectives from the four of us. But I want to leave you listeners with this. So, as we mentioned, one of the best pieces of dating advice, just start running after Jesus. And after you've been running after him for a while, look around, see who's running with you. Join a young adult group. If you haven't, you can try CatholicMatch.com. No guarantees.
Or Catholic Adventure Stanford.
Or Catholic Adventure Stanford if you live in Stanford. But definitely get to know some other people, because there are others in your boat who are looking for a spouse. I guarantee, whether it's a guy or a girl. And, you know, if it's God's will for you to be married, you know, you have to take that step and kind of step out really in faith and just be like, hey, I just want to get to know you. Start as a friend, see where it goes from there. Thanks so much for joining us on Restless. You can find us on Veritas Catholic Radio at 1350 AM and also wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks so much, and see you next time.